All right, composition of functions. So you've actually done a the composition of functions before, and you just didn't know that's what you were doing. And you did that when you learned function notation. So function notation is great because somebody can define a function. And remember, f of x is replaceable. It's like your y equals, right? It could be f of x, g of x, h of x, like any letter could be there with the x. Also, the x can change. I mean, maybe you have a function of time right here. And then instead of x's, these are all t's and t there. All right, so a lot of science problems are like that. Anyway, so function notation is nice because then when somebody asks you a question like this, they're telling you, hey, take this original problem and whenever you see an x, put -2. So they're replacing x with -2. So it means you're going to put a -2 here and here. So this you should already basically know. So f of -2 would be 3, -2 squared, put parentheses, -2, or minus -2, and then plus 7. So let's work this out. So it'll be 3 times 4. Negative of a -2 is plus 2 plus 7. So I get 12 plus 2 plus 7. So 12 plus 9 is 21. All right, so now you're going to learn function notation. So you won't be putting a number in, you'll be putting a whole nother problem in. And so you're going to see it like this. So instead of having a number here, it'll be another function. So somebody's going to give you two functions and you're going to be plugging them into each other. So you can write it two ways. So you can write it like this. This is like the best way to see it. So that says f of g of x. So just like up here, this says f of -2. This little parentheses that's like of is what you say, like of f of -2, right? All right, so this is f of g of x, okay? So that means that you're going to take g of x and plug it into f. So you plug g of x into f of x, okay? So that means that f is the boss. F is the boss function. G of x is what's getting plugged into it. Just like up here, f was the boss, and then you're putting -2 into the spots, okay? And then you can see it the other way. If you give them two functions, nobody says f has to be the boss. Maybe g is the boss. So this means that you're plug f of x into g of x. So whoever is sitting out here, they're the boss. Okay, and I'll show you down below. Now, another way that you can see this is this little weird like circle. All right, so that doesn't say fog. This just means f of g of x. And this one says g of f of x. Okay, so it doesn't say golf. It doesn't say fog. That's just the circle. Think of it as the word of. Okay, so if I were you, when I see this, I would transform it to this expression here because it's a little bit easier to understand. Okay, so for letter A down here, I have two functions. I have p of x and h of x. This problem right here is asking me to make p the boss and h of x is getting plugged into it. So p of h of x. So that means I'm going to write down this problem right here. It's 4 something plus 1. And I have to put in this empty spot right here, I have to put whatever this is. So I'm going to take all of this and put it in there. And that's it. Just instead of putting a number, I'm putting another problem. So 4 something plus 1. And so right inside there goes 7 minus 2x. And all you had to do is simplify it. So 4 times 7, so 28 minus 8x plus 1. So I'm going to say -8x plus 29. And that would be my answer. My answer is an expression. So letter B. Now this doesn't say hop with a parentheses and x. This means h of p of x. So I'm going to take h. So this is my boss right now. 7 minus 2 something. And what goes in that blank space is 4x plus 1. So let's work it out. 7 minus 8x minus 2, because remember I'm distributing the -2. All right, so that would be -8x plus 5. That would be my answer. That is what h of p of x is. All right, so letter C, this says p of x. So that's a little bit weird, but all that means is that p is the boss, and you're plugging it himself back into him. So I'm going to write down 4 times something plus 1, because that's what p is. And in that blank space, I put 4x plus 1 again. So we just work it out. I get 16x plus 4 plus 1, so 16x plus 5. All right, so in letter D, we start to have a number, but that's okay. So we're going to take it, and remember I said if you see that little circle there, that little notation, let's write it a different way. This means p of h, and instead of x, it says -3. So to make this easier on ourselves, h of -3 is something that I can figure out. That just means I plug -3 into this, into h right here, and I get an answer. So I'm going to figure this out, and then when I get that answer, I'll know what number to put into p. So it's just like doing 2 problems wrapped in one. So h of -3. h of -3 is 7 minus 2 times -3. So I'm putting it into here. So I get 7 plus 6, I get 13. So now this I know is to be 13. So p of 13 is 4 times 13 plus 1, because I'm putting it into this problem. So what's that? 52 plus 1, so 53. And that's my final answer. All right, so these problems do get a little bit harder sometimes when your functions are a little bit more complicated. So this problem says f of x is x squared plus 3x minus 1, and g of x is x minus 6. I am being asked to do f of g of x. So f of g of x means I'm taking this function and I'm put in place of x, I'm putting x minus 6. So I got something squared plus 3 something minus 1. So in those blank spots, I'm going to be putting g of x, this. So x minus 6. Okay, so this piece is a little bit hard. So I'm going to write x minus 6 times x minus 6. We'll figure that out in a minute. But this part I can go ahead and just do right now. So plus 3x minus 18 minus 1. All right, so let's work this out. X times x is x squared. I'm foiling. X times -6 is -6x. -6 times x again is -6x. And -6 times -6 is positive 36. Plus 3x, and then let's see, -18 and -1 is -19. All right, so final answer. So notice, when you take this and you square it, the answer is not just x squared plus 36. Notice that the middle part also is going to be present. All right, you don't just square this part and square that part and go about your way. You also have a middle term, that minus 6 and minus 6x, that's minus 12x. So I have x squared, I have minus 12x here, plus 3, so that would be minus 9x. And then I have a 36 minus 19, so let me see, that's 17. And there we go. And all you have to do, you don't have to factor this, you're done. Your job was to plug g of x into f, and you're finished. All right, so now sometimes you're going to see this in table format. So remember that this little notation means f of g of 3. Okay, so again, I have a way to find g of 3. So let's take a look. Here's g. Here's all the answers for g down here. All of these right here. So, and here's my x's. So when x is 3, I go down, the answer is -2. So this answer is -2. I'm going to do f of -2. Well, if I look at -2, f is -8. So there's my final answer. All right, let's look here. I have to find f of 1. So here's f, and here's f of 1 is -2. So this answer is g of -2. And then I have to look at g and look at the answer for -2, which is right here. So that would be 13. All right, and one more using a graph. All right, so this is a little bit challenging right here, but still not that bad. So let's look at what they're trying to tell me. They're saying f of g of x is equal to 3. All right, so this is going to be a little bit difficult, but let's look at what this picture is saying. We have f of x is this parabola here. We have g of x is this other parabola here. I want f of something to produce 3. So I want the answer for f to be 3. So let's look along this f function and let's see, when is the answer 3? So I basically want to know, when is the graph touching a y value of 3? So when is it touching 3? That happens at 0 and at 3 itself. So I need this to be 0 or 3, and then I'm going to get what I want, because f of 0 is 3. That happens right here. And f of 3 is also 3. That happens right here. Okay, so let's write that down. So I need this to be 0 or 3, because then f of 0 is 3 and f of 3 is 3. Okay, so basically I have to make g of x, for this to come out like I want, g of x has to be 0 or g of x has to be 3. Okay, so let's figure when that happens. So let's look at g of x. So we're looking at this parabola right here. When is g of x equal to 0? Well, it's equal to 0 here and here. So I'm going to jot that down. So x would have to be -1 or 4. And for g of x to be 3, so here's g of x again. For that to equal 3, let's see, 3 is right up here, right there, and right there. Yep, so right here and right here is when it's touching 3. So that happens at 1 and at 2. So this happens when x equals 1 or 2. So my answer is 4 things. X would have to equal -1, 4, 1, or 2. Right, and that would produce the thing that I want to happen. Right, so a little bit tough, but you just have to decipher what you're being given. All right, bye-bye.